Hey everybody, it's Jay here with Faster Tech. Today I am going to be going over what questions you should be asking when you are looking for a dev shop. Now, I have worked with a lot of different businesses and companies and owners. Almost all of them come to me saying, "Hey Jay, I had this awesome idea for this application and these people completely wasted my time and my money, and can you please fix it for me?" So this video is to help you if you are in a similar position, if you are looking to have an app built for you, you have been working on it for months, maybe even years, and you've done as much as you can, and you need to look for that technical team to pick it up and to actually make that working MVP, make that application that you've been dreaming of. So if that's you, I think this video is going to be very helpful to you so that you can not only know what questions to ask, but also to understand the answers that they're going to give you in return so that you have a better idea on what to look for. Because a lot of development agencies, and I absolutely hate this, but a lot of development agencies take advantage of the fact that you, as a non-technical founder or business owner, do not have the expertise or the understanding to know what a good development shop looks like versus a bad one. And so a lot of times people are going to use this and use your lack of understanding to try and increase scope, increase costs, or just do a bad job of implementing it, and you would be completely clueless until it's too late. So hopefully we can avoid those mistakes, and I can give you some guidance and understanding as far as how to find that development shop. All right, so the first question is, what is your development process? This is fundamental to understanding how they work and how they think. Now, when you ask this question, they're probably going to give you some techno jargon of something along the lines of, we either use agile or lean, something in between. And they might not use those words. They might use some other words that mean the same thing. These methodologies, the core fundamental principle behind them is that you want to shorten the development cycle between your idea or feedback and the actual implementation and testing of it, because the fundamental building block that these development processes are built off of is the idea that you don't really understand the market knows what the market wants, and so you have to just pay attention to that and shorten the time between your idea and your implementation. While most say they do that, in practice many do not do that at all. And over time, what these methodologies have developed into is just, the agile methodology has a bunch of dumb words about and processes and rules, and I think you can get certifications and stuff, and all this stuff. It gets in the way of fundamentally, okay, how quickly can you implement this feature so we can test it and then we can move on to the next one. Asking this question and seeing how they respond. Do they give you an in-depth answer? Do they give you just a really high level, 2-3 sentence answer? That's going to be really informative, because what you want to understand is this a development team that is going to try to educate you and help you understand how this is going to work, or are they going to try and keep you out of the loop and out of the process as much as possible? So yeah, that's a great question to start asking and gauge the response. So the other question is, the compensation model going to be project or hourly, right? Are you going to pay them based off of a series of hours? And of course, this can look different for different companies. What they'll do is they'll give you, like, you get 100 hours. I'm going to work for 100 hours. You're going to build whatever we can in 100 hours. Others are going to say that they want, that here's the estimated cost, but here's our hourly rate. And then others are going to say, okay, this is the fixed price for getting these features done in the scope. And then you pay it either half up front, half when it's done, maybe something in between, milestone based. Each approach has a different pros and cons. For hourly, the pros is that it makes estimating the costs a little bit easier on the development side, because sometimes when you're mapping out a project, actually all the time when you're mapping out a project, you don't know what features are going to take longer or shorter. Some things can seem like they're going to be really easy to implement. Other times, the hard things seem like that would take many hours can only take one, and the things that seem like it'd be a walk in the park can end up blowing up the time spent. So it's hourly is really great for the development studio, because that way they can control their costs a little bit better, especially if they're paying their developers hourly, and then they just double that or whatever their pricing model is, and they just charge on top of that, and then it makes their finances really easy. Project based is a little bit more nicer for the business owner, because the business owner knows exactly, okay, I'm going to get these features based off of this price here. Now, of course, in the contract and the scope, there might be stipulations as far as if you come to them with some extra features. Okay, are you going to include in the current scope? Are you going to include that in extra scope? Are you going to increase the price? So there it is. Typically is open for interpretation, but genuinely speaking, project based is much better for you as the business owner, because you will understand exactly how much it's going to cost, versus hourly. It can kind of fluctuate. I also think that, personal opinion here, I think that project-based is just a better form of compensation in general, because it incentivizes the development studio to work fast, because it doesn't matter if they get that done in 4 months or 4 weeks. They're still going to get paid the same amount, and so that incentivizes them to be very efficient and focused and to get it done, whereas hourly, they get paid based off of how much time they work. So they're incentivized to spend the maximum amount of time as possible before completing the sprint or the project or milestone or whatever the objective is. So that's just something to keep in mind when they talk about it. The next question to ask is, what language/frameworks is your team familiar with? So this is kind of gets into the technical details of how apps work. So you're going to have the core of the app is the language or the framework. Now it's going to build different services. Maybe it uses a stateless database like MongoDB, or maybe Postgres. Maybe it uses Vercel or AWS, or there's a lot of different questions, and you and your development team can work that out. The reason why this question is so important from the outset, before you even go into any of the technical details and explain your idea. The reason why you want to ask this question is because you want to remember this answer when you're mapping out the scope later in the conversation with your development studio. And that's because what you want to suss out is if this is a development team that just has 1 or 2 languages that they're super competent in, and that's all they build everything with, whereas do they have a few languages that they're more that they're good at, but they can do a lot of other different frameworks and languages. The reason being is that each language and framework is a specific tool for a specific job. And what you want is a development team that's going to do the research, and it's going to find not just what they're confident with, but what will be the best fit for your application, and then learn and implement that. It has a much harder approach. It's much more difficult for the development side. I know, because this is what we do. It's much easier to just have 1 or 2 frameworks that you're really good at. Maybe it's Node.js, maybe it's some form of React. But the important thing is that we understand what that framework is at the outset. So when you're scoping out and they're like, oh, hey, we're going to use React, or we're going to use Node. And that's one of the things that they say that they're really familiar with. Then you can kind of understand, okay, maybe this is the team that isn't going to find the best possible language. Not necessarily, right? Maybe it just so happens that they line up, but it is something to ask and to understand. All right, so now here's a little bit of a spicy question. Asking, where is your team based? Why do we ask this question? Unfortunate, but a lot of, at least if you're stateside or in Canada, Europe, a lot of development teams have maybe a project manager, maybe a senior developer in the States, and everything else is done by a Pakistani or an Indian team. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. Anybody anywhere can write code. This isn't like a region specific thing. The reason why this is important is because of the communication and the difficulty to help them understand your vision, because it is so important that your development team understands your vision almost as well as you do. And that goes for the developers too. Not as much as like the project manager, the owner of the agency. The developers need to understand, okay, what is this for? What is this being built? One time I took over a project where it was this, oh, what was it? It was a business card application where you scan someone's QR code and then it pops up their business card. And the development team, which was I think based out of Brazil or somewhere in South America, they built the entire thing in desktop application because they didn't understand the context of where this application was going to be used. And there's so many stories like that where you just have these fundamental, I've seen it time and time again, where you have these fundamental breakdowns with context and understanding, okay, what is this app for? What is this building? I also heard that, sometimes you can get a really great team and it works out well, but in my experience that it tends not to go well for the startup, the business owner. So that's something to be understanding of and to be aware of, and make sure you know what you're going into before you do it, because maybe you're okay with that trade-off. Maybe you're fine, like, hey, I'm doing something that is super basic and generic, and this isn't going to be a problem, and great, go for it. But you should be aware of this when you are mapping out a project and trying to find a team that you want to be built with. Okay, so next one is the timelines for an MVP. So this is also kind of goes back to the first question of what is your development process? Because if you remember, it's all about shortening the time span between initial development and feedback. The shorter you can get that, the better, typically speaking, the better the data you can collect. If they say, hey, we're going to give you 2 to 4 weeks for an MVP, that's perfect. That is what you're looking for. You want somebody that's going to cut out all the fat of your idea and just implement the most important key aspects that you need to test. 1 to 3 months is a little bit more, maybe if it's more complex, maybe if you got a lot of moving parts, then maybe it'll be expected that it'll take maybe a little bit longer. 3+ months if it's that's kind of in the danger territory, because I fundamentally don't believe you can accurately give a timeline for anything longer than 4 weeks. Most of the time, if you get into the 1 to 3 months or 3+ months time ranges, you can almost be guaranteed that you're going to have delays. It's going to take longer. You're not going to launch on time. So I always like to keep things really short and punchy. In fact, part of our process is the first day of the sprint when we're working with a new client is we get the website up live so that they can see it. Typically it's just the basic, templated website of whatever framework we're using, so it's nothing fancy, but the idea is that we want to give you the ability to see the website and see the web app as quickly as possible. And also don't let them say that, oh, you can't see it. Oh, the website is live in some form, right? It might not be in your normal domain, but you will be able to see it in some way, and they should give it that to you, and so you can look and see their progress in real time. Anyways, all that to say, look for a development studio that's going to implement your MVP as quickly as possible so you can get that data, even if it's not perfectly implemented, even if there's a lot of bugs and things going wrong. You want something that just works so you can start gathering those user stories and testimonials and feedback. So in summary, here's a nice five questions that we went over. You can write them down, put them in your notes, so the next meeting you have with the dev team, you can pull them up and ask them. So what is your development process? And just understand, okay, the main point of this question is to understand what sort of development team are they? Are they going to try to explain things to you and help you understand, or are they just going to give you a short 1 to 2 sentence response? Do you charge hourly or project based? So just understand what the incentive structure is so that you can know what to expect. Then what language and frameworks are you familiar with? Are they the types of person that has a hammer and to them everything is a nail? Or are they going to really do the research and take the time to find the best possible framework for your project? And then where's your team based? So just understand, okay, are they overseas? Are they local? just to understand what sort of communication issues you might be having, and then how long before MVP? Like, what's their timelines? How quickly can you get that basic working version so you can get the feedback necessary to continue development? And finally, time for the shameless plug. My marketing guy would kill me if I didn't include something like this, so you can blame him. But anyways, yeah, we build web apps and we love building cool stuff. And if you got something cool you want built, send an email over here. You can scan the QR code and that'll automatically generate the basic email template for you. But the important thing is that no matter who you go with, whether it's us or whether it's someone else, the important thing is that you know what to ask so that you can have your vision be implemented